Hello and welcome back to In Spirit with Missy Reno Smith. Today we are talking with a good friend of mine, Judi Bar, and we're going to be talking about healing, healing yourself and healing your pets as well. So welcome, Judi.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. Could you tell everybody a little bit about, what you do, what you've done, your qualifications and such?
Absolutely. So my name's Judi Bar, and when I was young, my whole life, I knew that there was something I was supposed to do that was going to make a difference. And for years, I thought it was this and that and this and that. And only now, in retrospect, as I look back, I realized, wow, it was twofold. It was finding my true self and also becoming a yoga therapist, kind of a healer, and helping other people. So my qualifications is I'm a certified yoga therapist. I'm retired from the Cleveland Clinic. I was hired to begin their yoga programs in 2007. And I'll tell you, doing yoga at a major medical institution in 2007, before there was that much data or before there was a lot, of information out there about yoga, it was kind of like selling used cars in a hospital. It was very difficult, but
you were a pioneer.
You know what? I think I was. There was. I later looked it up, and there were three other, and they were women, or are women, that were doing something like what I was doing, but they took a chance on me and hired me full time. And I had a counselor a year or two before that where I said I was going to earn a living teaching yoga, and she said, "Oh, you won't do that." And I said, "Watch me. I think it's gonna work." So not only a yoga therapist, but through that time, then it is quite a spiritual awakening. So I became an angel therapy practitioner, and I'm a Reiki master. So there's a fair amount of, study, official study there. And then since retiring, I'm continuing to teach and, evolving as we go, and loving every minute of it.
Well, that's really wonderful. It's really interesting how you, incorporate healing in many different ways. So that's one of the things I find very interesting about you. And but your story is really incredible. What brought you here? And I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that. You had some real trials in your, was it your 40s?
Yes. And you and I have certainly talked about this before: God's plan, my plan, our own personal plan. And because I was always a little bit different, my grandpa always used to call me the shining star, hello sunshine. And I think one way or another, there was some bullying, and there was just, the jealousy with kids, and certainly all children in some way or another have something that they deal with. But how poignant that was, and then that tended to follow me a bit, whether or not it was the outside physical, but it stayed inside me. So in my 20s and in my 30s, I just had all these. I had extreme migraine headaches, and then I had deep allergies, harsh, and I had, I was anorexic, and so for the course of these 15 to 20 years, there were all these physical things going on with me. I mean, I was still vital and I was a flight attendant out of college, and then I worked in a production company. I was a dancer, so I choreographed. I mean, everything was really cool, but everything just felt so, it was harsh. And so, plus I was born and raised Catholic, and I don't know, I was put on this earth, and when I dropped onto this earth, I thought it was all about God and love and angels and kindness towards each other and non-judgment. And And what I found as I was growing up, it was nothing like that at all around religion, right? The church ladies and the nuns, because I went to parochial school. I mean, it was just, and one day I just said, you know what? I give up. This can't, that I quit. I don't like it. And so what happened is I disengaged myself from, it isn't somehow religion then, or the way it was taught, it wasn't separated to understand the true spirituality. It was just all these rules and judgment. And so I'm like, yeah, whatever, this is not for me. Mm-hmm. And so as spiritual and as much as I believe and have worked my intuition, even when I was young, I would hear and see things and all, I just denied it all. And
very common.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, we push it away. Yeah.
We do, because first off, it isn't talked about or accepted. Although what's interesting is my grandmother had been born with a rheumatic heart, and she would go to healers. She passed away, unfortunately, when I was 7, but she, I think I take after her a lot because, in the 40s, people weren't going to healers. Her name was Catherine Kuhlman, and she would go and I don't know what they actually did but anyway,
she was open to it.
She was open. Yeah. And my mom was very, she always would say, honey, pray. It really helps. I promise you. And, I was just, until my dad was passing. I was in my late 30s. Mm-hmm. And, pardon my French, but I'm a chicken. I'm just chicken. I'm a chicken, right?
You were scared.
But I'm scared, right? And so I knew I wanted to be with my dad, and he, the hospital had messed up some things, and it took him 18 months, but eventually he passed away, became septic, and it was really rough. So I made a pact with myself, no matter how afraid I was or how uncomfortable I was going to be there with my dad. And so my brother and my mom and I were at his deathbed. And so just before he...
Could I jump in there?
Sure.
So sorry. I think Dad's here. So, I know he's very sweet. Yeah, he wanted to give you, you must have asked him to help you.
I did.
Okay, so you asked him to you were scared and you wanted more, you wanted to know more. And so Dad is saying he was motivated. He heard you. He heard you asking. He's turning my ear red, by the way.
I see it.
Yeah. So sometimes I think I might be getting both of them red. Sometimes those of you who are just listening, when spirits communicate with me, spirits, angels, their vibration brings blood to my ears. It opens up the blood flow and turns them red. So Dad is turning them red, nice and red for us. But yeah, so he says, well, first of all, he says, love you, Judi. And he says, he took that challenge and he answered it, and he gave you a sign. So he passes. What was his sign?
Well, as he was passing, he would say hi to somebody, in the room that we didn't see, of course. And I said, Dad, I don't want you to cheat. If there's any way you can help me with this God thing, I'd sure appreciate it. And because I hadn't prayed, I was just there. And not long after that, I was present, my brother and my mom, which was really cool too. And at his last breath, a big bright light came into the room. Now we're in the bowels of a hospital. There's no windows. And as he passed, I don't know if it was my brother or I said, oh my gosh, look, the sun came out when Dad passed away. And I saw in my mind's eye his soul leave. The old, there was a cartoon, and in the cartoon, all he did was zoom. He was just a zoomy. I forget what the name of the cartoon was, but I saw his soul just shoo. And I stood there and I thought, there's my answer. There is something more, right? And I asked some of the nurses, and I felt such peace. I sat in the room for almost an hour and a half with my brother and my mom, and I wasn't afraid. I wasn't uncomfortable. And one of the nurses says, occasionally we see this when there's deep love and you'll see the light. So we saw the portal. We saw the portal open up, and my mom and brother saw it too.
Oh,
And
all of you. That's wonderful.
it wasn't, it wasn't just me. But just like a day before he had passed, his cardiologist is from India and took me aside and sat and talked to me for a while. And he said, I don't understand you Americans. You feel so sad when they're leaving, but yet their soul is free and it's not the way we celebrate it, And I sat back and I thought, wow, there was a lot there. And that changed everything for me because it broke through the man-made rules to show me, oh my gosh, of course there's more. And that was it. I started reading and doing everything to try to catch up, and it changed my life.
Was that what led you to yoga? Was it that that experience, or was that just kind of the stepping stones?
You know what? It was the stepping stone. It did. It just changed my whole outlook. It changed everything. And so I was pretty voracious in reading and trying to understand it and get past all the old rules and things that Catholicism had taught me. In fact, I read the Neil Donald Walsh books, Conversations with God. It took me I think I read it 7 times to really get past all my old stuff, but finally got there.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while. You have to every time you read something, if it's speaking to you, you kind of need to digest it and then go back to it. So that's interesting. Right. I do the same. I've done the same thing. I think a lot of people will do that, or you reread it at another time of life, and it says something different to you, and kind of opens something else up. So so your dad's passing huge then in your spiritual awakening. Right. And I'm assuming then you were probably feeling pretty good then, just kind of with that moving through life with new eyes and missing dad, grieving, but having a new outlook, which is incredible, which is wonderful. And you were in your late 30s at this point.
Yes, I think I was. No, I think I might have been in my early 40s.
Okay, sure.
And so yes, it made some changes. I still had a lot to get used to and to understand from a new perspective. And then the physical things started coming back. So all those physical things I had when I was younger. And this is where my back problem came up. I went to bed one night. I was fine. I was still I still danced. I was doing dancing professionally. I was teaching. I was choreographing.
Sorry, he wants me to jump in. He says you were a leaper. You like to leap.
A leap. Dad said,
when you were little, he said you would leap for him. You would leap through the house. So dancing, leaping, and he said he'd love to watch you do that.
I was 3, and I remember we had home movies. I had leopard pants on, and I put these real fancy glasses on, and I would dance around, and that's when my mom and dad knew she has to go into dancing. She needs to be a dancer. Yeah. So
that's wonderful. They recognized that.
They did. I was so very lucky. It's kind of like my soul work. So but my back problem happened, and the back problem happened, I think I was about 48. Okay. And 45 is when it happened. And went to bed one night fine, woke up the next morning, couldn't walk.
Oh my goodness.
And then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. I was walking with a cane, and I would just fall. So basically it was spinal stenosis. They told me I had a back of an 88-year-old woman at 45. So the MRIs showed that, and they said your back is all, and that knowingness that helped me actually with Rooney, he's right here, that's why I'm pointing to it, but there was something inside me said, this just isn't right. This, I shouldn't, they said if I didn't get this surgery, which was really invasive, it was, it's putting the rod in the back and all that stuff. I thought, if I get that, they said, you'll be in a wheelchair. And the turning point if I didn't get the surgery, I'd be in a wheelchair. And the turning point of it was, I was with the neurosurgeon and the radiologist, and they were standing right here, talking. I was on the gurney, and the surgeon said, you have to get this surgery. And this took a lot of courage, but the radiologist said, I don't think she should, because if she gets it, her back above it and below it is just going to continue to get worse, and it's not really going to make a difference. And I looked at them, and they're bantering back and forth, and I'm like, okay, this is a sign. So that preface of understanding more that of course there is a higher power, and there's so much more to all this, and not all the rules and regulations, was helping me trust my intuition and my gut. And so I stood up, I turned around, I looked at him, I said, look, obviously you two can't agree, and I'm not going to do this. I said, I need a year, and I'm going to work on healing myself. And if I can't, I will come back to you. But I was on medicine, I was getting shots. I mean, I was definitely experiencing the chronic pain syndrome and just going downhill. And I was still young and vibrant, till 2 weeks before my back hurt, I was still performing and dancing and all. And so, and the guy, the neurosurgeon, and he was like this, he put his teeth like this, and he goes, you're going to be bearing me for that surgery. I think he was really mad. His ego was probably, and I thought.
It took a lot of courage to say that to him, too.
What the heck? What the heck was I doing? But I just knew. And he said, you're going to be begging for this surgery. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you're not going to do it if I end up finding out I have to. But sure. There was my mother, my dear mother, then said to me, Judi, why don't you try yoga? And so there it was.
Yes.
And as I began, I thought, well, I'm going to change my life. I looked at my stress, how I ate, my exercise. I looked at every part of my life and said, all right, what can I change? What's going on? And then the message of it was, you're not meant to be in a wheelchair, Judi. This is not where you're supposed to go. And then I started to think about, what's the message in the pain? What in the past 20 years has my body been trying to tell me that's been going on with me, from the headaches to the allergies to anorexia to then this back problem? I'm like, yeah, there's something else here, which then I began to pray more and meditate and study yoga. I actually self-taught myself because it was too hard to go to classes, which is really important, because here I was still very vital and young and active, but yet I couldn't even get on the ground, and I couldn't do these typical yoga poses that most people see, it's like, well, I'm going to put my foot behind here, and that isn't really what yoga is about. Yeah. And so that also informed how I was going to teach other people.
So you had to be intuitive, not just in finding your path, but you had to be intuitive then how you were going to do things. So with the yoga, you had to intuitively figure out how to move your body to heal it. And then that taught you something so you could help others kind of figure out what they needed to do to move their body. Does that sound right?
Yep. And I had read, and I was pretty voracious, I had read Deepak Chopra, and, what is it, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, or Timeless Body? Anyway, that title. And it talked about that cells regenerate anywhere from a couple weeks to like 11 years, everything. And I'm thinking, there was nobody saying to me, you can heal. But I thought, I think there's things I can do about this. I'm not going to just lay on the gurney and say, fix me, right? So yes, it was listening. I meditated, I walked, I exercised. I was in a rough relationship that, what's spinal stenosis? That was the main, I had degenerative disc disease. I had all kinds of things, but what I was picturing was my spine was crushing together. And I was looking at my relationship, which was emotionally unkind and probably abusive, and everything that I was letting happen. And I thought, there's my message. Change that. Change the message. Tell me, what is my body trying to tell me? Isn't that what pain is about anyway? You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Trying to get something out of it. And so then I started working to make the energetic, the emotional, the changes I needed to make. And I didn't there was moments I'm thinking, what are you doing? How could you be? Because I stopped seeing the physicians, I stopped the shots, any medicine, all this stuff. And so there were moments where the fraud police came in and I'm like, no, you can do this. You can do this. My higher self just kept telling me that. And within a year, I was up and walking again and teaching. And now I have absolutely no problem, unless I fall on the cement with my doggy because I fell in the, and then I have some repercussions, but nothing like I would have had I not listened to my intuition.
That's so important. It does take courage to listen to your intuition. I think that's important for people to take away from this too. You have to be courageous, and you have to say, this is what I'm feeling. This is where I need to go. And you did that. You've done that many times throughout this story. I mean, just, all these little, points in the road that you've come to, you've had to, really trust yourself. And I think that's really amazing because it's difficult. Just that it's difficult to do that. We second guess ourselves. And like you said, that internal saboteur comes in and all the time, right? It happens all the time. Happens to me, happens to everybody.
It still does. That's the human side of us, right? That's the brain, it's the nervous system. And who do we listen to? How do we listen to it? Society isn't set up for that, not necessarily. So like minds and keeping that courage of our conviction. And I know you experience this too in your work, Missy. It's, we can't touch it. Sometimes, yes, we can feel it. Many times we can see them, but it's not that it's right here in front of us where it reminds us that we've got that, we've got that ability.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, if you, especially those who maybe just feel things, I think they have a little more trouble trusting their intuition if they're, not getting to see or feel like physically feel like my ears, like I can physically feel it's hot, and I of course I get to see and but not everybody does, and it's a little harder. Your faith has to be a little bit stronger, I think, in some of those cases, but I don't think it's any less. We receive how we receive.
Right.
And so however you do it is amazing. It's wonderful, and trust it. That's important. I think, just 1 year you went from, heading to a wheelchair to being healed and up and walking and not just walking, but doing yoga. And now you're really doing yoga, and you're really getting into it, and you're starting to teach at that point. Was that a little later?
Well, it's when I saw I was vital. I mean, even as a 40-something-year-old, I was still extremely active, extremely young, and for me to not be able to do the yoga that was out there, I got this DVD and I went to that class and I'm like, I can't do this yet, so it informed me. And then that's when I knew I have to help other people. So I see that this is not accessible. And, I even got a yoga for back care DVD, and it's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that I'm going to be putting my foot over and getting on the ground? And so it was really huge informing me on, and here's the thing, that was what I was supposed and am supposed to do. That was the important piece of what I needed to do in my life, because what that did is open the door to realize my work will be to become a yoga therapist, which is it's a lot more education than and training than a yoga instructor. A yoga therapist, we learn the physiology, the anatomy, and the cause and effect of disease processes, and how medicine affects us and all. And I realized my work here is to help those that feel hopeless or helpless, especially with chronic pain, but anything, because I've worked with cancer and heart patients and the whole thing, is that if we can understand that message, if nothing else, there's hope, and we can at least take a layer off. Because as you and I have talked about, what's our path? What's the is it my time yet? And what is this directing me to do differently? Right. Because we get so stuck on all the physical. I have a client. I called them patients, of course, when I was at the clinic, but that I can tell there's all kind of relationship things going on, and there's physical manifestations, but just keeps trying to find it in the physical manifestations, and it's never going to happen. So it shaped my work, and then I self-taught myself, honestly, to become who and what I did in my training. And then I knew that, and I had a very robust private practice. I'd see 25 people a week privately for the chronic pain, and I had 7 or 8 classes a week that I taught. And then I realized I needed to reach more people, and where else to do that but with the Cleveland Clinic.
Which is incredible.
It's incredible, yeah. And so I started to get some information, and in not long, there was a need to hire somebody like me to write a disease reversal program. Right when Dr. Roizen, Dr. Cosgrove was setting up expanding the integrative medicine in lifestyle medicine years ago. So completely guided, divinely guided, that was the big thing. I wasn't supposed to be a prima ballerina, which would have been still cool. I think I was in my last life, but
we can look at that someday.
Yeah, you're right. We haven't done past life regressions. It would be interesting because it does inform where we are here. But so that ended up giving me the impetus to realize, all right, this is what I'm going to do, and I did it. And
I hear you talking, and I hear you talking about your soul purpose. I hear you talking about your life purpose. Soul purpose, healer, teacher, dancer, artist, all of these things that, God sort of infused in you, and that you yourself cultivated, over your many lifetimes. And then life purpose, how am I putting it together? What am I going to do here and now? How am I going to make a difference, and everything? So I think you're really summing that up really nicely for people too. Just not really the topic of this episode, but that we talk about a lot about soul purpose and life purpose, because it's big in everybody's life, right? What am I here to do? So I think that's really wonderful that you sort of recognize, who you are and what you're here to do. And you did amazing things with Cleveland Clinic. You helped implement this program that really wasn't there. And, you pioneered it, and you made it into something that was yours. This was the Judi Bar program. And that's it. You should feel good about that. You met people at their level, which I think is really important.
Good that you caught that. Absolutely catching them at their level, because psychologically we already feel less than, especially if we're dealing with chronic pain. Oh, I can't do that. I'll never go into a yoga class because I can't. And the beautiful part, if we go deeper into that, is it's mindful. It's through my meditation and my prayer, and just intuitively, I also have understood how there's that place of healing when we learn to center, when we're mindful. First off, mindfulness helps our well-being. You know, we'll taste those blueberries at first we put them in, or we'll feel the breeze when we walk outside. We smile when we see the sunshine, you know, those just a few moments of being present. And if we can get our patients, our students, to begin to understand what that feels like, then, and here's the healing, we then can interpret what's going on within us to help. So although you say you're right, it doesn't sound like it's completely the impetus of the episode in our title. The fact is, as we understand how to work on our healing, everything else comes from that, our life purpose, our soul. Maybe we're even doing it, you know. So my work is even just gently through the accessibility of doing very simple poses, like on the chair. Most of the work that I do is people on the chair, which you wouldn't believe how deep you can get into some poses, though, using the support of the chair. But I'm continuing to draw them to how you feeling, conscious breath. Notice, now we're starting to practice mindfulness, kindness towards ourselves, patience, empathy, and we start teaching these really simple but amazing traits or tenets. We call them in yoga, but it's mindfulness. It isn't just yoga. And there's where the healing comes, because it is our choice, right? We can't force somebody to heal, but try to give them that path to begin to see what it takes to be able to help themselves, you know?
Mm-hmm. I do know, actually, I experienced chronic pain once in my life. It was really intense. It lasted almost a year, and it was really hard. It's really hard to break through all of that, and to you know, kind of, you need help. You need somebody who knows what they're doing to kind of come in, intervene. And it's amazing that you know, you have dedicated so much of your life to helping people like that, breaking through, reaching. And you know, it really anybody who's dealt with chronic pain, I think, knows what we're talking about. And or just an extreme illness. And you know, it's really hard to get there. It just is.
It becomes our story then, though, too. And it takes our energy and our impetus, because, you know, well, gosh, I don't know, can I even go to the grocery store today because my back hurts? And geez, I don't think I feel like seeing anybody. And what I also learned is that many times the situation, and here's another growth opportunity, the situation can present in a way that it gets us out of doing things we don't want to do. Like, I remember there was a gentleman that I worked with, and he'd had a stroke, and he didn't want to do any of the rehab and all. There was all things. He was comfortable in it because he was getting some of the things he didn't get when he was young. He was getting attention. He didn't have to be the man of the house and work hard anymore. And I watched it and I thought, wow, look at that payoff. But at what cost?
Yeah.
We can't, you know. And so it is interesting to see how the chronic pain can become a big part of our identity, and we kind of lose our way. You know, it becomes the story.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, very fast too. I found it just, you know, very quickly, it just took over. And so yeah, very, very difficult situation for anybody to deal with. And I was very young. I was like 28, 29.
Oh, and yeah. But you grew out of it. How cool is that?
I did. Yeah. I was very lucky, and you know, I'm grateful to the people that helped me, and I'm grateful that I've never gone back. You know, I'm in my mid 40s now, and I've never experienced that particular issue since. And I have to work hard not to. I have to be mindful and everything. I have to keep my mindset where it needs to be so that I don't go back. Right. That's important. Well, let's kind of pivot a little bit here, because we're talking about patient heal themselves, but you know, sometimes we have to help other people heal. And whether it's a loved one, family member, sometimes it's our pet. And you actually experienced that recently with your golden, Rooney. He was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer. When was that? When was his diagnosis?
It was last July, so July, just shy of a year. And it's interesting because how present we need to be with our children, with our family, and certainly not every moment, because there's all kind of things that are going on, there's, especially if our family's a little younger or whatever. But he was showing some lethargy, and I thought, well, it's warm out, but he stopped eating. And it took 2.5 weeks to diagnose it, which little did I know, but he was then the diagnosis was large cell lymphoma. It evolved to hepatotic, which is basically liver cancer. And so, it just knocked me between my eyes, and my heart, especially, of, oh my gosh, So yes, it's been just under a year, and it's been the ride of my life, I think. Not only for, certainly my chronic pain, but you were one of the first people that I talked to check in, because what I found, what I wanted to know is, in God's plan, in the plan, is it his time yet? And I know there's things within my power to help him at least somewhat. But so I checked in with you, and we obviously we talked a few times. And as you've said, sometimes it's hard for our own self to stay emotionally detached enough to hear what we need to hear, or to get the answers, so in checking in. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being there, and how fantastic you were and are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember talking to you that first time even, and of course we've spoken many times since, and about Rooney, and yeah, I remember one of your questions was, well, I remember you saying a little bit about, like, I had this idea going into retirement, and it's going to be me and Rooney, and we're going to do, all these fun things together. And now what are we going to do? I mean, what are we supposed to do? And so it kind of throws you for a little loop there. And you really wanted to know what was right for him. Which is important, what's his plan, and but it obviously commingles with your own plan, and so we have to kind of figure those things out. But yeah, I do remember, and I remember your intuition was telling you that he was supposed to be here, and I was very grateful that I could say that I felt the same way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It just didn't feel right yet. He's 7. There's a history in Goldens and many dogs. I mean,
Yeah.
What I've seen in this past year, treating him, but it's almost, I mean, Goldens get cancer, and
They do. They're one of the top 3 breeds, I believe, to get cancer: Labs and German Shepherds and Goldens.
Yes.
And
yes.
1 in 4 dogs will get cancer now. That's the current statistics around it. Lymphoma is one of the, I believe it's the top type of cancer for dogs as well. So he just kind of went, along the trend with this, right? Yeah.
I just saw a picture of his parents, because they're the breeder, and his parents are like 12 and 10 years old, and it's just like, wow, look at that. There they are, and here he is. Yeah. And so the lymphoma is a very fast moving cancer. So literally he was literally falling. He was getting sicker and sicker while I was trying to get to the right doctors and get appointments. I mean, it's as hard to get appointments as it is with humans, with specialists. But so what I found is it's the fastest growing. And when I first saw the oncologist, she said, if we don't treat it, he will be gone within 4 to 6 weeks. You know, it's that fast.
Wow.
But it's one of the most treatable, which I'm like,
right.
But so here's the other thing. As you and I talked, and this really helped, because as his mom, you know, I'm gonna do this and feed him and take him and do it, you know, but energetically, what's our path? And it became clear on either our first or second talk with about Rooney, was that we made a pact when we were on this planet together, that the biggest piece was going to be for me to trust God and to completely to trust the process. And holy cow, to think that, you know, he makes this commitment, and this poor guy, he's going through all kind of stuff. I'll update all that in a minute, but he would do that for me.
They sacrifice for us. Our animals do. They come here not to learn themselves. They're just perfect, all love beings, right? We're flawed. We need to learn and grow, and they of course are just incredible, just as they are. And they come here for us, which is incredible. And yeah, it's something that makes me respect my animals, you know, even more. Like they came here for me, for our family, to be here and to help us grow. So those lessons that we learn, you know, as we're healing ourselves, you know, we're also learning lessons when we're helping others heal, including our pets. And so, yeah, you're talking just about that, the lessons, the spiritual lessons that you've had, you know, with Rooney, and healing, and it's intense. It's a lot. And so you still, even though you've gone through all these really intense things with your back and such, you're still here, you know, 20, 30 years later, you're still learning. You know, you're still growing.
And isn't it you know, for me, it feels, I don't want to say final. I'm trying to poke at him because he's still in some treatment, and I'm trying not to.
Sure.
Rick. Yeah, I'll update that in a second. But
sure.
You know, you watch our pets and they completely trust. You know, then I'm going to pick that water bowl up, and then I'm going to put it back down, and I'm going to give them the water, and they trust that I'm going to feed them, and they trust that I'm going to take them out, and that I'm going to love them. And how many of us trust God in the process that implicitly, that we just know it's going to be all right, or it's going to fall into place the way it needs to, or it's in divine order. And when I watch that, I think, you're right. They're completely perfect little beings, and we have a lot to learn from them. And
Heaven, you know, often states it in the way of, you know, God's divine time. You know, all things in God's time, in God's way, and you know, that's their way of trying to soothe us. You know, like it'll be okay, and that. But it really, yeah, it's hard to accept it sometimes. It's hard to really settle down and truly say, okay, it's going to be there. God's going to make sure that whatever it is that I need, that it's there. And you know, I struggle this with myself. Even though I teach this is what I do. I mean, this is my job to teach people this. I struggle with it myself, and but it's always been there. God's always been there for me. God has always provided, and so I mean, you know, I feel good saying that right now, but you know, tomorrow I could come across something where I get a little nervous, you know, maybe something's going on, and I'll have to remind myself, you know, that's how we do it. But yes, animals just trust us, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful thing. Well, you know, you did a lot of things to help Rooney. I want people to know that you hand fed him. You literally put food into his mouth
Yes.
to feed him, because that's how much we love our animals. And you know, you went with a multi approach, you know, with the doctors, but then you also went with your own intuition and finding, you know, other natural things to go along with it. You took a real, you know, you cast a wide net there to make sure that he got everything that he needed, which was wonderful. And but tell us, how is he doing today?
Well, we, you know, we had 15 weeks of the initial protocol, which he was in remission pretty early, but, you know, the protocol just, you have to keep it going. Luckily, they have a fair amount of data, and his responses to the chemo, I keep looking over at him. Sorry, he's right there. Come here, Rube. You want to poke your head over here?
For those who are watching, here's the sweet Rooney. He's so
Rooney,
sweet.
wait, can you see him? Wait, where is he?
Yeah, we can see him.
Rooney, can I see your beautiful face? I can't tell if you're on or not.
There he is. Yep, we saw him.
He's there.
So sweet.
So he was in remission, and we went for monthly checkups to the oncologist, and maybe it's been about 2 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. Some single cells started to show up again in the lymph, and we've talked about it in the lymph and in the blood. The chemo was kind of working, and you know, we worked with Jesus that first round. I saw Jesus come through. He put his hands on. I felt the powers angels. I did the
the healing angels. People that are listening, if you're sick, call in the powers. Raphael, the powers. That's who we need. But yes, Jesus came that time. That was actually a really powerful session.
It was really because Jesus came through to talk, and then that night I saw him do some work on Rooney. So, you know, there was a lot of help, which said to me that probably, you know, the physical aspect of it was pretty tenacious. But on his checkups, then some of the single cells mutate. I've learned more about cancer than I really want to know. Sure. But some of the single cells hide out and wait for a while and then show up again. So it hadn't metastasized or anything. Those single cells came up. And the first couple, luckily we found it before he even had any side effects or any effects of it. And the chemo that she was giving him wasn't really working very well. She said, we need to change it. And she was not all that, I have an oncologist, she wasn't all that sure that this next chemo, so he had 2 rounds, and then the third one, she said, you know what, it's starting to spread a little bit, not a lot yet, but we need to catch it. And she said, frankly, if this doesn't work, we're in trouble. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Really?
Yeah.
Are you really kidding me? I thought
ups and downs, right?
I thought we were good. I thought we rocked it. I thought we were really good. So I called you again because I still feel like this is not his time. God, what else do I need to know? What else do I need to know? And it came through that there's nothing else tied to it but the physical aspect of there's these cells. And so you mentioned our physician, or you brought in the physician for my soul pack. We called him.
Everybody, we all have these physician guides that work, and they don't tend to work for us personally, but for like our big soul group. And so you can call them in too. So yes, so we brought, he came through, and this is important stuff. People need to know, like, you have access to help beyond just your own guides and angels and God. You know, there are these other beings that can come in and help if you ask. So so we asked.
Oh, and we did, because it just felt there's a tenacity about it that about these, you know, and again, because I knew nothing had changed yet, it still wasn't his time yet. I thought then we need to do everything that we're guided to do to help him. And so I will have to say it was a rough 2 weeks, because it was pretty heavy duty. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, am I trusting enough? Is there a little bit more? And of course, there's more to learn. And, it's like if there's no physical reason or if there's no spiritual reason why it's his time yet, then what is going on here? And so I went much deeper into trusting and accepting. But in that, we call him Dr. Stevens. Of course, as you said, it doesn't really matter, but that was the name.
Doesn't matter what we call him, but yeah.
But it kind of came up. And he had brought in a couple other specialists, and they talked about vibrational healing, which I did. The megahertz healing every night. I gave him Reiki and just so much love. And there were some things they did behind the scenes that I don't know that either one of us were aware of. But, so we go back for the 2-week, and this was only a couple weeks ago. We go back for the 2-week checkup. And, I really wanted to know, but I didn't really want to know. And then I did. And then I'm like, of course, what are you worried about? Come on. It's okay. The human side.
Yeah. It's scary. We're people. Yeah.
I don't, I don't want to lose him. And some of it's in my hands. It's all in God's hands. But, these little things I'm doing. And she walked in and I held my breath and she said, it's all gone. She said, it's all gone. And, I just wanted to melt in a puddle at that moment because it's like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I felt so relieved too when you sent me that text, which I think you sent it to me the same day.
I did.
Yeah.
No.
I felt so relieved because Rooney has been on my mind for, a whole year. And or almost a year at that, at that point. And so that's amazing. It's wonderful to get to that wonderful point. I mean, you still have to watch and watch him and making sure that he's healthy and that I'm sure it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to get out of that mindset. That's part of it too, is remembering I'm healed. I still need to do my checkups, but I am healed. But it's speaking of that though, when kind of in wrapping things up, like what do we do? Tell the listeners, like, if you're sick or if, somebody in your tight circle that you're responsible for is sick, like what's step one? What do you think people should do to sort of begin their self-healing journey?
Really, I know this sounds corny, but it's almost like, what are you trying to tell me? Talk to the back pain, talk to the shoulder pain, talk to the cancer. What do I need to know now? And the thing is, I truly believe we kind of know. It's kind of underneath all. It's like, we were abandoned or we were abused or we don't feel appreciated or whatever it is, remembering that it's our body telling us. And I think one of the most important things is we really can heal with God. We really can. It is trusting it though, because, our human mind, even though I know he's fine. I mean, I felt he was fine the last time, which kind of, and then I thought, well, there's more to understand here. There's more to grow. There's more to grow from.
Yes.
And yeah, there was. And that felt a little uncomfortable, I guess, but we have so much more in our hands. We're not a victim.
Great point. And I agree with you on that. When people come to me when they're ill, and a lot of times we do some trauma release to figure out what's kind of behind that. What is my body saying? What sort of spiritual blockage am I hanging on to? And we try to get rid of that, so then we can kind of move into those next phases. Yes, and trusting is very important. You've got to have the mindset. You've got to trust, and something I like people to do is to change their speech and work on their thinking and their speech and how we talk, and we need to be positive and such. I think you guys, and you and Rooney experienced something too. I'm sure you did this with yourself, was getting the right team, whether it's the physical earthly team and then it's the heavenly team.
Yes, the unseen and the seen,
Yeah.
the right team really does make a difference for sure. And that's where the depth of how we can help ourselves and our children or our pets. And then, and it's still hard because I'm like, well, I don't want to lose him, but what if God says it's time? Well, if God says it's time, then it's time.
Well, that's right. Yeah. Sometimes, we all have, there's that plan where we're here for a certain amount of time to do a certain amount of things, whatever that is, whatever we agreed to, whether, and that includes our loved ones, whether it's our children, we all have our own plan. And so if their plan comes to an end, acceptance too, sometimes we do have to accept that, whatever that might be, which is difficult, very difficult.
Well, and as you said, changing our dialogue, our power of intention, our just the vibration of the words and the thoughts. First off, if we're in fear and insecurity and in challenges, we're not going to be able to hear and or feel or see or know our intuition or our guidance. But it also helps our overall well-being and our stress levels, and that in of itself. But that's, as we said earlier, is where we can understand and get our guidance. We'll just get a click that, oh. And, remember, during this time, one of my kitties passed away. And at first, when he was overtly sick, I'm sure there was stuff going on. It wasn't quite his time yet. And I did everything I could for him, and isn't this something too for all of us, is appreciating every absolute moment that we have with our loved ones, with ourself, with nature. I mean, just really being in the moment. And then a few months went by, and it was evident then that it was Simon's time. So I laid with him, and he passed away in my arms, with Rooney right next to me, and my other kitty, and so it was an interesting parallel of the timing. He had gotten real sick, but he got better. I had him around for another 3 or 3.5 months, which was just a blessing. But then I knew, I just knew, and
it was, yeah. And that's part of our lessons, is and we have all these different lessons happening, converging at one time, and dealing with that. And that's, that can make it a little harder when we're trying to heal, when we have something that comes up with it, just makes it a little harder. But that was, another deep spiritual experience, with Simon, losing Simon, and, grieving and coming through that. But you guys did that wonderfully. And, but you said appreciating, and that's very important. I really agree. I also think it's important to, when we're healing, to show God that we want to be here, by learning new things. Trying new things, learning new things, take a class, do something. You're thinking of your future. And you are, I don't know, it's a life affirmation. You're just saying, to the world, like, I want to be here. And I think that you and Rooney were doing some of that, just, in talking to you, and what you guys had been doing, taking Rooney outside, things you were, and I'm sure when you were healing, you were kind of making life affirmations too, especially learning something new like yoga and all of that. And which is truly amazing. We are running out of time though. So I do want to say to everybody, we're going to be including some links that you can go to learn more about Judi's work. and the Cleveland Clinic and what you're doing now. And we might have a few other little surprises in there too, links for people. It was so wonderful having you on the show, Judi. I hope we can have you again sometime. I'm sure we'll have other things to talk about. It was really, really great hearing your story. It's really inspiring. I really, truly am grateful for you to be on today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I'm so excited, and what an honor. And I've learned and understood things even a little bit more, even as we've been doing this. So it's beautiful.
Well, that's great to hear.
And you are a godsend and an angel on earth for us. There's so much that we can learn from you and your wisdom. So thank you too for all you are and who you are.
Well, thank you for that. Wow, that was very nice. Well, I just want to say to everybody, remember that God loves you, and I'm sending angels.
If you'd like to learn more about Missy Reno Smith, please visit missyrenosmith.com to book a reading and purchase her artwork. You can find the In-Spirit podcast on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook, and wherever you stream your podcasts.